A couple weeks ago, I made a video where I talked about every team's best young player, and I hinted in that video that I wanted to make a video ranking every team's young core. And I had no idea how tough this was going to be when I thought about it. And I have ranked every single NBA team's young core into 6 different tiers, and we'll be talking about those teams in those tiers specifically. I think that's the best way to portray this ranking. And I'm sure you're going to disagree or agree with some of these, so please let me know what you end up agreeing or disagreeing with in the comments below, and drop a thumbs up if you guys do enjoy these videos. It's tough to kind of dissect these, and they're tough and they take a long time to make, so I'd appreciate it if you could drop a thumbs up. Also, 2 disclaimers before we get into this. Every player has to be either 24 years old or younger. If you're 25 or older, you are not considered in the young core. I had to cut it off somewhere, so 24 or younger. And every team in a tier specifically, you can interchange with it. So if they're the first team I mentioned in tier number 6 or the last team I mentioned, you could swap them and I'm okay with it. And a common theme for all the tier 6 teams, they're all competing for an NBA championship. So to start off tier number 6, I have the LA Lakers. Yeah, this LA Lakers young core is not great right now. It's Jalen Hood-Schifino, who was a first-round pick in 2023 that is unproven in this league, that didn't have a great rookie year. You have Max Christie as well, who was a second-round pick out of Michigan State a few years ago. He got paid this offseason, but hasn't proved too much, but I like the potential he's shown. I like Maxwell Lewis, a second-round pick out of Pepperdine last year. You have Dalton Connect as well, a recent first-round pick. Bronny James, a recent second-round pick. There's a lot of unproven guys in this Lakers young core, and I don't think there's a standout star yet. The Celtics may actually have the worst young core in the NBA, which is okay because they're going for an NBA championship this year and for the next couple of years because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are still under the age of 30. But yeah, it's between Jaden Springer, JD Davison, Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman, their recent first round pick. This young core is not good right now, and that's okay because they're competing for a title. They have a lot of veteran talent, but yeah, they have one of the worst young cores in the league. The LA Clippers do not have a good young core either, and it's kind of scary that they don't have a good young core because they have a lot of aging stars like James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and they don't own any of their draft picks directly until 2030. So this is a dark future for the LA Clippers. They have Cam Christie, who they just drafted in the second round. I like that pick for them. I thought that was a great value get in the middle of the second. They have their first rounder from the 2023 draft, Kobe Brown. I didn't really like the pick when it happened. He didn't really do much in his rookie season. A lot of unproven talent right there. You win in Joshua Primo and Kai Jones, 2 former first round picks that haven't worked out in the NBA yet, as well as Bones Highland. And they did pick up Kevin Porter Jr. as well, who will help this young core, but it's still not great on paper. The Phoenix Suns also don't have a great young core, and they're competing for a championship. They are the most expensive team in the league. They have Kevin Durant, who's not getting any younger, and this team is probably not going to be a finals favorite, but they don't really have a great young core to look after. Now, they do have Devin Booker, who's still under the age of 30, but this young core isn't great. They did draft Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro. I like both of those picks in the 2024 draft, but they haven't proven anything yet. I like them getting Jalen Bridges on a 2-way. They do have David Roddy, Bol Bol, and Nasir Little. Yeah, it's not good. The Knicks only have 5 players on their roster under the age of 25, and 4 of them were just drafted. Pacoma Dadiet in the first round, Tyler Kolek, Kevin McCullough, and Ariel Hukporti. They do have Miles McBride, though, who's a really nice young piece that contributed to the Knicks in their playoff success last year. But the premier talent on this team is still in their mid to late 20s in Brunson, Bridges, OG, and Randall. And then in my last tier 6 team, I do have the Milwaukee Bucks. They have probably more depth than some of these other teams, but a lot of these guys still unproven. They took AJ Johnson in the first round. He's had a nice summer league so far, but there's going to be years to go, I think, on him being a contributing piece when they're trying to make a run in the playoffs. Andre Jackson and Marjon Beauchamp, they've done not really a great job developing those guys. I do like them getting Tyler Smith in the second round this year. And they do have AJ Green and Chris Livingston as well. There's a lot of depth here, but a lot of unproven talent. I think they're in a better position than some of these other teams we've talked about, like the Clippers and the Suns and the Knicks in regards to their young core specifically. All right, so I got 2 teams in tier number 5. They're kind of weird. So the first team is the Denver Nuggets. They have a lot of depth, but not a lot of high-end depth. They have Christian Brown, who was a first-round pick a couple years ago. Nice young piece. They have Peyton Watson, who was the last first-round pick in the 2022 draft. He's been a nice piece for them. They have Deron Holmes, who they took in the first round this year. Unfortunately, he did tear his Achilles in the summer league. Aiden Hunter-Tyson, Zeke Naji, Julian Strother, PJ Hall, Trey Alexander, and Jalen Pickett. A lot of young guys there. No really studs that are going to help them raise their ceiling specifically, but I like the depth they got, and I think it elevates them above tier 6. And the other team I do have in tier number 5 are the Philadelphia 76ers, and the reason they're here is pretty much because of Tyrese Maxey, and that he's younger than 24 still, and he's one of the best guards in the NBA. He was an all-star last year, and he got a rookie max extension this offseason. They also drafted Adem Bona. I like that a lot. Jared McCain, I do like that as well. I think Ricky Council is going to be a real rotational piece for them this year. And in KJ Martin and Justin Edwards, it's a fine young core, but it's pretty much carried by Tyrese Maxey. And I'm actually going to have a third team in tier number 5. It's going to be the Brooklyn Nets. I thought Nick Claxton was still eligible for this under 25, and now he is 25 now. So the Nets are my last team in tier number 4. They have Cam Thomas, a really nice young shooting guard in this league. We're going to see what Derek White and Noah Clowney can do this year. Both weren't great in their rookie seasons. Clowney a little bit more than Whitehead, and Whitehead has not shot the ball well whatsoever in summer league. They have Daron Sharp, Jalen Wilson, and Trenton Watford. They're pretty much also carried by Cam Thomas here. All right, so I got 3 teams in tier number 4. We're going to start off with a team that just lost in the NBA Finals, the Dallas Mavericks. So Luka Doncic is no longer eligible to be here under 25, but they still have a solid young core, and that's headlined by Derek Lively, who was fantastic for them in his rookie season last year for Dallas, being a rim runner, guy that can catch alley-oops and be a perfect complementary piece to Luka Doncic. They also have Jaden Hardy as well, who I still have a lot of stock in this league. They have Olivier Maxence Prosper, who's a first-round pick in 2023, Quentin Grimes, who they picked up this offseason as well, and I think he's a legit underrated 3-and-D player in this league and is still just 24 years old. They were a hard team to rank though, so I'm fine if you drop them to tier number 5. Next team I have in tier number 4 are the Sacramento Kings. This is headlined by Keegan Murray, their first-round pick in the 2022 NBA draft, one of the better shooters that are under the age of 25 in this league, and I think improved on the defensive end of the floor last year. They also just drafted Devin Carter out of Providence. I love that pick for them. This guy is going to make winning plays. He's going to knock down big-time shots, play big-time defense for them as well. Keon Ellis being under 25 years old is great because he's a elite perimeter defender already at his age. You add in Isaac Jones, Isaiah Crawford, and Kobe Jones, a couple nice two-way and undrafted / second-round picks. I'm fine with that. But yeah, it's headlined by Keegan Murray, Devin Carter, and Keon Ellis. All right, so we'll start with tier 3 here with the Miami Heat, who I'm actually bumping up from tier 4 to tier 3. It's actually a good young core. They drafted Jaime Jaquez in the first round last year. Phenomenal first-round pick. I actually really like Nikola Jovic, a first-round pick in 2022 as well. I think he's going to break out fully here in the 2025 season. They just drafted Kel'el Ware in the first round this year. He's been great in the summer league and is going to be probably the best backup center to Bam Adebayo since Bam got drafted in 2017. Next up, we have the Golden State Warriors. I like their young core that they have right now. Jonathan Kuminga broke out last year in year number 3. Moses Moody is still a fine young piece, but I don't think he's going to be as legit as we thought he could have been out of Arkansas. And Brandon Podziemski is incredible as well as a rookie. I really like his talent and I'm super high on him. So I think having Kuminga and Podziemski really helps the Warriors out a ton. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls. They have a lot of depth as well now that they're kind of entering it towards a rebuilding stage. Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu being great young guys on this team in the backcourt that both broke out in the 2024 season. They drafted Montes Buzelis with the 11th overall pick. He has impressed a lot of people throughout Summer League. They have Patrick Williams still, who they signed to a $90 million extension this offseason. And they just have a lot of depth. Adema Sanogo, Jalen Smith, who they just signed, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, a recent first-round pick. And oh yeah, Josh Giddey as well, who they traded for this offseason. This Bulls core is actually pretty good in the young aspect of it. After this season, the Washington Wizards young core can like drop a tier or raise a tier, but right now they have a lot of unproven talent. Alex Sarr, the 2nd overall pick in this year's draft, is headlining it. He has not had a good summer league so far, but I think he's going to be fine throughout his rookie season. They also have Bub Carrington as well, who they drafted at number 14. And that was involved in the Denny Avdia trade, who was going to be a nice piece in this young core. They also drafted Keyshawn George in the first round. I like that a ton. You wait in top 10 pick from last year, Bilal Coulibaly, who impressed a lot of people towards the end of the year, grew this offseason, and I think is going to have a great sophomore season. And I'm a fan of Tristan Vukcevic as well, but a lot of guys actually recently graduated from this young core like Jordan Poole, Marvin Bagley, Sadiq Bey, and Corey Kispert. I feel like same thing for the Utah Jazz here. They could elevate a tier and go up to tier number 2 at the end of the year, or they can maybe drop to tier number 4 because they have a lot of young, unproven talent, but I think are in a better position than some of these other teams. You have 3 guys from this year's draft class that could make an impact for them next year. Cody Williams, the 10th overall pick, Isaiah Collier, who they got late in the first round, and Kyle Filipowski, who they got in the early second. Walker Kessler is still one of the better young centers in this league as a rim protector. I think he's going to be fine after a down year number 2. They had 3 first-round picks last year in the 2023 draft, and Bryce Sensabaugh, Keontae George, and Taylor Hendricks. Kenneth Lofton, Darius Baisley. Pretty much this whole team is under the age of 25 outside of Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Markkinen, and John Collins. The Atlanta Hawks just added the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 draft to their young core in Zachary Sachet. He's had an inconsistent summer league so far, but they also have Onyeka Okongwu, who fits this young core as well, and I want him to start. I hope we can see him start this season. He's been a backup to Clint Capella ever since he's been drafted back in 2020. They picked up Dyson Daniels from the DeJounte Murray trade this offseason, like what he could do on the perimeter defensively. I still have a lot of stock in Kobe Buffkin, who they took in the first round last year out of Michigan. They have other end-of-the-bench guys like EJ Liddell, Vit Krejci, Mohamed Gay, and Seth Lundy, but the main piece as well here is Jalen Johnson, who broke out last year. He was a first-round pick in 2021, and he's a big part of this Hawks young core going forward, now that Trae Young isn't part of the young core anymore since he's 25. And my last team here in tier number 3 3, it's going to be the Portland Trailblazers, who have a lot of depth, and I think a recurring theme of these tier 3 teams are they don't have their franchise young guy on the team. Like, maybe that could be Scoot Henderson, maybe that could be Reece Shea or Alex Starr, but they haven't really proven that yet. But I do like the Blazers young core a ton because they have just a ton of depth right now. They have Scoot Henderson, who was the 3rd overall pick in the 2023 draft. They have Shaedon Sharpe, who was a top 10 pick a couple years ago. Anthony Simons, unfortunately, does not fit the criteria anymore, but they picked up Denny Avdia this offseason. They just drafted Donovan Clingan in the 1st round. They drafted Chris Murray in the 1st round last year, Ryan Rupert in the 2nd, and guys like Jabari Walker and Tumani Kamara as well. It's a solid young core here in Portland, and I think it could definitely be in tier 2 by the end of the season. So here we go, tier 2. This is a really good tier, and some of these teams you can even put in tier number 1. So we're going to start off with the Detroit Pistons. They have their franchise young guy on the team, which is big, that I don't think anybody in tier 3 has right now or has proven so far, and that's Cade Cunningham. They also had 2 lottery picks in the 2022 draft that are solid depth pieces. I don't think they've really lived up to their hype so far, but you have Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. Both have had their moments in this league, but you would like for them to be maybe a little bit better. Ivey with his shooting, Duren with his defense. I like getting Bobby Clement in the 2nd round this year. I love them drafting Ron Holland with the 5th overall pick. You guys know how high I am on Ron Holland. And then you took Asor Thompson with the 5th overall pick last year. You have Isaiah Stewart and Marcus Sasser as well. It's a solid young core here in Detroit. We'll see how they play in 2025. Next up, we're going to talk about the Toronto Raptors, headlined by Scotty Barnes, who was the Rookie of the Year from the 2021 draft class. He was an all-star last year. They traded away OG Anunoby back in December and picked up 2 guys, part of this young core, in RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley. I'm so high on Emmanuel Quickley this year in Toronto. They did lose out on their 1st round pick this year, but they got Jacoby Walter with one of the picks from the Pascal Siakam trade. They got at 19. Bunch of 2nd rounders in Jonathan Mogbo, Ulrich Chomchi, and Jamal Sheed. Osha Agbaji and Christian Koloko fit this criteria, and they also drafted Grady Dick in the 1st round last year, was one of the better shooters from the 2023 draft class. We got the Pelicans up next, and they have their franchise guy as well in their young core. That is Zion Williamson, who was the 1st overall pick back in the 2019 draft. He had a great year last year, playing more of the point. They also drafted Jordan Hawkins in the lottery last year, Yves Missi in the 1st round this year, and Trey Murphy also fits this criteria. So just having Trey Murphy, Zion, and Jordan Hawkins is going to elevate you a decent amount. I already had 7 teams in tier number 1, so I had 2 really tough, like, honorable mentions. They're here at the top of tier number 2. First one is the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, LaMelo Ball is a stud. He was the 3rd overall pick back in the 2020 draft and has been one of the better young point guards in the league since he's entered the NBA, but unfortunately he has struggled to stay healthy, but he has all the potential in the world. Brandon Miller looks like an absolute budding young superstar who they took with his 2nd overall pick last year, was on Team USA Select this summer, played great in his 1st summer league game. You had in Mark Williams, who was a nice 1st round pick back in the 2022 NBA draft. You also have Nick Smith, who was a 1st rounder in 2023. Tijon Solana, top 10 pick this year. A little bit unproven with these guys, and can they win together? But it's a really good young core, and it hurt me not putting them in tier number 1. And another snub from tier number 1 are the Cleveland Cavaliers, headlined by Evan Mobley, the 3rd overall pick back in 2021, and Darius Garland, the 5th overall pick back in 2019. They drafted Jalen Tyson this year, and you have Craig Porter Jr. as well. They're just a tough team to rank because they don't have a ton of depth, a ton of super young guys on this team, but just having Mobley and Garland helps out a ton. Minnesota Timberwolves added to their young core this offseason. Who expected them to get Rob Dillingham? And they're the team that's going to kick off tier number 1. Added Rob Dillingham. Love the addition of Terrence Shannon Jr. late in the 1st round for them as well. Obviously, they have Anthony Edwards, who's one of the best young players in the NBA. Already a top 10 player in the NBA as well. Ed and Jalen McDaniels, one of the better perimeter defenders in this league. Naz Reid, who just won 6th Man of the Year. This is a really good young core in Minnesota, and that's not even talking about Rudy Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns. Man, the Pacers have a really good young core as well. Tyrese Halliburton is still part of this young core. They also have Andrew Nemhard, who broke out in the playoffs for the Pacers to help contribute to a conference finals team. They have Jarris Walker, who was a top 10 pick last year. Ben Shepherd contributed a ton last year as well. And in Benedict Mather in the top 10 pick in 2020. Love them getting Johnny Furphy in the 2nd round this year. Isaiah Jackson, Aaron Nesmith, James Wiseman, Kendall Brown. There's a lot of depth on this Pacers team, and they have their top guy in Tyrese Halliburton as well. Definitely a tier 1 young core in this league. I mean, you got to include the Memphis Grizzlies, right? Ja Morant headlining this young core, the 2nd overall pick in the 2019 draft, still under the age of 25. Jaren Jackson Jr. from the 2018 draft class. Yeah, still mentioning somebody from the 2018 draft. He's still 24. And in top 10 pick this year in Zach Edey. Still have some other young talent in Zaire Williams, Jake LaRavia, and Santi Aldama. 2 2nd round picks they've recently drafted as well in Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams. I like them getting Cam Spencer in this year's draft. This team has the top end talent, and the depth as well. And that's going to be the case for the next team we're going to talk about in the Orlando Magic. They have the #1 overall pick from the 2022 draft in Pavel Banchero, who I believe can be a #1 on a championship team and is one of the best young players overall in this league. They also have Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs, who were both top 10 picks in the 2021 draft. They just gave Franz Wagner a rookie max extension. They drafted Anthony Black and Jett Howard in the lottery last year, Tristan Da Silva in the first round this year, and Cole Anthony also fits this criteria as well from the 2020 draft. This is a really good young core in Orlando, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Next up, we have the San Antonio Spurs, who were definitely carried a little bit by their top guy in Victor Wembanyama, the #1 overall pick in the 2023 draft. The depth is good on this team. It's definitely not as good as some of these other teams in tier #1, but like I said, it's carried by Wemby, who just had one of the greatest rookie seasons we have seen in quite some time. And they do have some nice complementary young pieces around Wemby. Jeremy Sohan, a former top 10 pick, Devin Vassell, a former lottery pick, Keldon Johnson, a former first round, haven't even mentioned Stephon Castle, the 4th overall pick in this year's draft. Also have 2 other first round picks, Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley, Trey Jones, a former second rounder, Julian Champagnie, and Sidi Sissoko. There is depth on this team. Like I said, I think some other teams have better depth in their young cores than the San Antonio Spurs, but just Wemby, man, I had to put him in the top end of tier #1. And you can have a lot of young depth, right? But how much of it is going to be good, that has super high potential? And I think the Houston Rockets have arguably the most young depth in this league that can actually pan out to being really good players. So they just drafted Reed Sheppard with the 3rd overall pick, and he may not even play more than 25 minutes a night when he's NBA ready and he's tearing up the summer league. You have Amen Thompson, who is the 4th overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. Cam Whitmore, who went out of the lottery in last year's draft, but definitely should have been a top 10 pick in hindsight. I haven't even mentioned AJ Griffin, who they traded for this offseason, Jabari Smith Jr., the 3rd overall pick in the 2022 draft. Oh yeah, how about Jalen Green, the 2nd overall pick in 21, and Alperen Şengün, who broke out in year #3, maybe the best young player on this team. And gotta give a shout out to Tari Eason as well, a former first round pick. There's so much young depth on this Rockets team. It's a good problem that they have right now. But in my opinion, the best young core in this league, even with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander graduating, is still the Oklahoma City Thunder. You have Jalen Williams, who was an end of the lottery pick in 2022 and is a dynamic scorer already and has improved so many aspects of his game each and every year of his career so far. You have Chet Holmgren, who was just a rookie last year since he was hurt, all in his rookie season back in 2022, and he was so elite as a rookie. Elite as a 3-point shooter, rim protector, and the sky is the limit for Chet in this league. They just drafted Nikola Topic, Dylan Jones, and AJ Mitchell in this year's draft. And in the other J. Will, Aiden Ousmane-Dieng, and Cason Wallace, who was the 10th overall pick in last year's draft. In my opinion, the Thunder still have the best young core in the NBA. So yeah, that is going to be it for me. Like I said, this was really challenging to do, so let me know what you agree with or disagree with in the comments below. And drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy the video. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.